action. Gotta be honest with you. Anytime I'm hearing Katie Britt's voice, I'm thinking cringe, cringe, cringe. I know she's gonna say something about moms, 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 and she did. That there was her announcement that she is literally putting together a database of moms. This is a bill that would require the states to apply child support obligations during pregnancy. They would launch a website, pregnancy.gov, with resources related to pregnancy, including information about adoption agencies, but not abortion clinics. And it would also provide grants to anti abortion nonprofits that assist women through their pregnancies and after birth. This is a Republican pipe dream. It's all pretending to be about moms. I can't stand this pandering with the soft, soothing music that has never typified any of my mothering or pregnancies or any of things like that. I am a little bothered when we have political parties who are pretending that they care about the health of women, but then their policies clearly exclude one of the most important elements of reproductive health care. And joining me right now to talk about another vision of maternal justice is Gina Arias. Gina Arias is on the maternal justice team at Moms Rising, working as the campaign director for maternal mental health. She advocates for policy changes and greater resources for maternal mental health, as well as supporting the reproductive justice on the MJ team. She's got more than 2 decades of experience in public health, and she is joining us today. We are grateful for her being here. Gina, welcome back to the show.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. Let's talk about what we mean when we talk about Maternal Mental Health Week. Now, we've had Black Mamas Matter Week and Black Maternal Health Week, but Maternal Mental Health Week, this is a pairing of concepts that I love. Talk to us about the impetus behind this concept.
Well, this concept is to shed a light on maternal mental health
Yeah.
conditions, which are the most common complication of pregnancy and childbirth. At least 800,000 women per year in the United States deal with maternal mental health issues. And when
Oh,
we're talking about, yeah, it's so many, right? We don't we
yeah.
don't talk about it enough. When we're talking about conditions, we're talking about depression, anxiety, OCD, post-traumatic stress disorder, bipolar. There are many, many
Mhm.
conditions within maternal mental health.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
That's a shame. My God.
Yeah, yeah. And one thing we know is that there are some people who are at greater risk of experiencing maternal mental health conditions. So we're talking about folks who have a family history of mental illness, people of color, low-income folks, military service members and their spouses, including women veterans, immigrant parents, and folks who have had previous birth trauma or sexual trauma, and those who lack social support, particularly from their partner.
Wow. And
Yeah.
so 800,000 women a year, I'm still kind of stunned by that. I knew it was a big issue. I just didn't realize it was that significant of an issue. What services are typically available to moms who are suffering with mental health challenges?
Well, I'll tell you that in this country, we are sorely lacking in that area.
Mm.
About 70% of counties lack the sufficient resources for maternal mental health. So that's an estimated 62 million birthing, women who live in this country who are in places where there is a maternal mental health professional shortage. So that's one thing. Let's look at it from that perspective. But there are some resources out there. I think last time I was here, we spoke a little bit about this new medication for postpartum depression.
Mhm.
Uh, However, what I'd like to focus on is and mention is the 24-hour, 7 days a week hotline, national hotline. It's 1-833-TLC Mama. That's MAMA. It's a 24/7 text and call line, so you can text the line. They have English and Spanish counselors. It's just for maternal mental health. Of course, your partners can also call anybody who is experiencing maternal mental health issues. And they have translation services for about 60 languages. So that's
Wow.
one resource. It's only about 2 years old. I really do wish they'd had it when I was when I
Like,
had
girl. So I'm like, where was this 17 years ago? Because Lord
yeah.
Jesus.
Well, we were just out here.
Right. We were parenting on love and vibes. Like
Right.
love, hormones, and vibes.
Right. And community, if we had, if
Yeah.
we had that and we're able to access that.
Mm. So I just typed in 833 TLC Mama, and I'm brought to a website, the National Maternal Mental Health Hotline. There's a partner toolkit in there, which I think is fabulous because this means that you're not just sort of navigating this path on your own. Your partner even has the ability to be a support. This is wonderful. There's information here. There's social media links that I want to make sure, Jonah, that we tweet this out as well, so folks can get a look at this because I know of so many women who never got whatever mental health support they needed as new parents, and now the kid is 5, the kid is 10, the kid is 15, and that for some of them has continued to impact their mothering and their ability to actually show up fully for their children. I was looking at one of the articles that you had written on Maternal Mental Health Day, and you talked about the fact that your son was barely 3 months old, and you were dealing with your own feelings of depression, and the idea occurred to you that, wait a minute, am I pregnant again? And the level of stress that raised for you. Could you talk to us a little bit about that moment? I feel like sometimes we think of mental health as these big emotional mental breakdowns when sometimes it's just this overwhelming disconnect from being able to make sense of things. Can you talk with us a little bit about your own story?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and sometimes what one thing that we do know is that um in sometimes Black women, Latina women speak about these issues in a different way. We may not say, oh, we're depressed. We
Right.
may say we're overwhelmed. I was definitely overwhelmed. I was probably also depressed. And then I thought I might be pregnant again. And that was just sent me into a near panic because, I had this newborn. And this is even more critical now, now that since you mentioned my story, and I did write about it. Obviously, it's on the Moms Rising blog. Um, we're losing our ability all over this nation to access abortion,
Right.
and even they're coming for contraception as well.
Yep.
So it's a bit of an insanity loop because on top of that, this country is the most dangerous place to give birth among high income countries. We have a high maternal mortality rate, particularly among Black and Indigenous women. And so it's like we have women in places now who can barely access contraception, can access abortion. The mental health, maternal mental health resources are not there, and they're essentially being forced to give birth.
Mm, my God. Yeah, what's really interesting is that even if you are not the stresses that we have around reproductive health can happen whether or not you're actually pregnant or not. It was so funny when I was reading your story. I had a similar experience. Like our daughter had already been born. I'm back in the workplace, and a friend comes in and is like, "I'm pregnant," and she and I were about the same age. I was like, "Holy shit! I cannot have that happen." What? I thought we were too old for this. And I, there was some things that happened that had already made me think that this might also be happening again for me. I was panicked. Absolutely panicked. And I mean, I'm in a two-family household. I
Right.
we both work. We're supportive of each other, gainfully employed, but the idea that I was going to have to do this again, the fear, the stress, I mean, it was a devastating moment. Fortunately, it ended up, going the way I needed it to go, but that level of stress, when you say that we're losing access to reproductive care, birth control, and we're forced to birth in one of the most dangerous places on the planet to birth for nations of this type. Gina, how can we not be stressed navigating this sort of environment? In addition to this hotline, what else should we know about how we can better show up for moms and the people who love them who are navigating maternal health challenges or maternal mental health challenges, I should say?
Well, we definitely have to fight for more maternal mental health resources. However, we also have to come up to par with these other industrialized countries that we compare ourselves to.
Mm.
For example, in this country, we do not have a national paid leave policy. We're the only income country that doesn't have one. And we're actually only one of 6 countries in the world that does not have paid leave.
Wait,
Um,
what? Are you
yes,
serious?
that's a fact.
Embarrassing. That is
We
embarrassing.
could have another show on that.
Yes.
Someone else from Moms Rising can come speak on it. But we need paid family and medical leave to recover from childbirth, to care for yourself or a loved one. If a critical health issue happens, to bond with your child. You know all this. You had children. You know this. And what we say is that you shouldn't have to win the boss lottery in order to get paid leave, and that's what
Right.
it is here in this country. So, we don't have that. On top of that, we have a child care crisis, right? We know that very well. We had our children in a similar in the same at one point
Mm-hmm.
child care center, you know, and childcare is the work that makes all other work possible. So we have a childcare crisis in this country. In some places, it's higher than sending your child to college.
Yeah.
And it should be a national priority, like water, like the roads, like good schools, etc.
Mm.
So we
And
have to fight
yes.
for those things. That's what I would say, that we have to
Yeah.
fight for those things.
Yeah. One of the things I appreciate about Moms Rising is you guys always bring us materials, things that we can do something with. And this policy document called Policy Heroes, building the care infrastructure and economy. Talk with us a little bit about that. That's one of the things I really appreciate about y'all's organization. Y'all don't just talk about it, y'all be about it, and y'all have the receipts and the materials that we need to build on your work. Talk to us about what we will learn from the Policy Heroes document.
Well, it touches upon many of the policy issues that affect moms and families, right?
Mm.
Excuse me. As we know, moms are often usually the pillars of the family. So anything that affects moms tends to affect the entire family. What I would like to talk about in terms of maternal mental health, actually policy legislation wise, is the Moms Matter Act, which is part of the
Mm.
Black Maternal Momnibus. And the
Yeah.
Black Maternal Momnibus is part of a comprehensive group of legislation to try to address the Black maternal mortality crisis. So the Moms Matter Act is specifically about mental health,
Mm.
and actually growing and diversifying the maternal mental health workforce. So there are other acts in there that touch upon maternal mental health, including the Kira Johnson Act and the Tech to Save Moms Act. These are all part of the Momnibus. So, but as far as the Moms Rising platform, it's so diverse in terms of all of the issues that we live with, because again, we don't, like Audre Lorde said, we don't live single issue lives.
That's right.
And I definitely encourage folks to check out momsrising.org to check the policy platform out.
Yeah. And y'all, again, I was so glad to learn that Moms Rising exists many, many years ago because you all target the folks that I care about. I think it's so important that we be aware of all the resources that you all have. And that's one of the reasons why, again, I'm grateful for your work. But I want to point out that one of the things you all note in this policy document is that each year in this country, it loses $122 billion in economic productivity and revenue losses due to just the childcare crisis. Now, Gina, were we at Some People, Little Maroons, or Little Footsteps together? Because those are my
Little
top three.
Maroons.
Little Maroon. Shout out to Mama Salah. Shout out
Yeah,
to Baba Austin. Yes. And if it weren't for institutions like that, and one of the
I
reasons that
helped
y'all heard me.
co-found. I'll just
Yes.
put that in
Wait, you
there.
helped. Wait, say that again. Say that again.
Yeah, I'm one of the founding families of Little
Can we
Maroons.
round of applause? Come on, let's round of applause this. Come on.
Thank
There we
you.
go. There we go.
And it came out of the necessity. We were
Yes.
all at wit's end around the childcare issue. If it wasn't too expensive, which it always was,
Yep.
it wasn't adequate. It didn't, encompass the hours that we needed it. Because one thing that we know is that Black and Latinx families often need past the regular 9 to 5 hours.
Exactly.
And most of us are not able to access that.
Yeah, yeah. And Little Maroons is such a great example because it is something, it was almost like a collective, a cooperative, if you will. And I remember when we first found out when we were pregnant with our oldest, like the idea that we didn't have to go to the regular schmegular degular childcare. Little Maroons was, it's African centered, it's rooted in history. So our kids were learning the names of great people. They were learning the names of different systems, different ways of governance. And out of Little Maroons, then we were able to participate in New African Scouts, which is like an African centered scouting community, which was fantastic. It was so good. And my kids never made it to Camp Pumaziko. I'm trying to see if we can get my oldest to go down this
Yeah,
summer. But
he'll love it. He or she will love it. My son
yes.
loves it.
Yeah, so it's, we have so many things at our disposal. We have so many tools at our disposal. And most importantly, Gina, we have us. We the people who can organize and figure things out. And so that's an example of doing that work. Moms Rising is an example of doing that work. And we just got to be mindful. That is all the Katie Brits in the world and all the efforts to focus on everything but full reproductive care. That's going to happen. But what we have to be mindful of is that we have the power, and Moms Rising, or Mamas con Poder, as the Latina version is named. That's what that looks like for me.